everyone. Pam Dubois, Dream Real Estate TV. And you guys know I'm always excited, but also very grateful to have with me special guest today, Janie Lacy. And Janie is the CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, and she's going to share with us some great information. She believes in relational approach by implementing her therapeutic treatments, addressing the physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual aspects of the individual. Dr. Janie Lacy, thank you so much for being with us. I greatly appreciate it. So first, share a little bit about you, if you will, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a big believer that no matter where we are in our life, we all deserve to experience healthy relationships. And many times we don't understand or realize that we are in unhealthy relationships. And I'm not necessarily even just talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about with friendships. I'm talking about with our parents or with our friends, or most importantly, with ourselves. So I believe that everyone, it's kind of like an alarm clock, right? So while we're all sleeping, we don't realize we're sleeping until the alarm clock goes off. So until the alarm clock goes off for many of us, we don't understand and realize that we have things that we need to heal from, and that we can essentially co-create a different life for ourselves. We don't have to live in the same, sometimes self-made prison. So that's my heart, and that's my focus, and that's where everything I do kind of gets birthed from.
Wow, amazing. And how long have you been doing this?
So I'm a licensed psychotherapist since I graduated from 2007.
Wow.
So around 13 years. And now I'm also a faculty member with the International Institute of Trauma and Addictive Professionals. So I have the honor, and I do consider it an honor, to train other therapists on how to work with women and trauma in particular. Because something a lot of people don't realize, Pamela, is that some people actually get traumatized by going to therapy. Because there's just like, real estate, there's so many therapists, it's saturated, but not everyone understands how women respond to trauma. So they can put a label on you and not realize that there are some things that are happening because of whether it's relational trauma or whether there's things that have not been dealt with in the past. So sometimes people don't want to go to therapy because they've been harmed, or they've been labeled bipolar, or, all these labels that don't even apply to them. It's just their heart needs to heal.
Wow. Well, speaking of the heart, and the heart needs to heal, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was this is the breakup season. And I've never heard of that before. So tell us how you actually come up with that term. This is the breakup season.
Well, it's not my term, but it originated because we kind of go back before Thanksgiving. It was called the turkey drop, actually, where typical college sweethearts, they would go home and reconnect with their high school sweetheart, and then they would break up with them because they don't want to go. Now they've gone to college and they realize there's a lot of options there. And then when they go home for the holidays, it's called turkey drop because they'll drop their high school sweetheart. So that's where a lot of it starts, right at that. And if you made it through turkey season, so to speak, then what we find is in January, it's kind of, they actually refer to it as Christmas for divorce attorneys, because people wait till after the holidays, because for some reason they think if I just wait till after the holidays, our kids won't be as affected. The things that we tell ourselves. So people will wait till after the holidays to divorce. Or the other part, I specialize in betrayal trauma. The other thing that we'll see is affair discoveries actually happen during the holidays. And there's many reasons for that. Is people get sloppy. Yeah. Or, what we'll find is very common in many different forms or fashion, where someone becomes, they find a receipt, or they feel like they're going to be getting something for the holiday. And what happens is if someone's living a double life, they're not only taken care of, and I work mostly with women, it goes both ways, but they'll taking care of the mistress, and as they're also taking care of their wife. And they're trying to juggle these things through the holidays. And a lot of times their world can potentially come crashing in. So a lot of people think it's Valentine's Day, so they think no one breaks up during Valentine's Day. People break up through this season. It's kind of like New Year's resolution time. They realize that things are, if they're not only being discovered, where they're forced to come to a head, people will just wait till after the holidays to realize that my New Year's resolution is I don't want to bring this toxic relationship into the new year.
Right. And that totally makes sense. The way you talked about it, and going through the holidays and going through Valentine's Day and the beginning of the year, also having new goals for the beginning of the year, right? But that's incredible. You also do anger management, right? Adult children, alcoholics, dysfunctional families with alcoholics. There's so much. Guardian advocate. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so for a period of time, I was a guardian advocate for those that would enter into the hospital system that did not have any families that would come and that can sign for their medication or sign for their care. So the court would turn over, we would have to go to a certain process where the judge would sign over us being a guardian for, most of them were elderly patients, where it's actually very sad, Pamela, they didn't have family that would come. They're in the hospital bed. They can't make decisions as far as medication and their care. So a complete stranger, essentially, that's what I was. A complete stranger would go and advocate on their behalf between them and the doctor because there's no family. So essentially, they get turned over to the state, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, I found very valuable work in that, but it was also very taxing for me emotionally, because
I can
this
imagine.
could be my grandmother, this could be my mother, that someone is just, there's no family.
Yeah, I can see where that can be very emotional. Yeah, going through that process. So let's say someone's in a dysfunctional relationship right now and is actually thinking about getting out of this dysfunctional relationship, right? What advice would you give them if they're afraid to make that move?
I think the first thing I always tell people is to not make decisions from a reactionary place. Because when people are in a dysfunctional relationship, they normally will threaten long before they actually leave. They're threatening because they think if I threaten enough, this other person who I'm invested in the outcome of them changing is somehow going to get how much this affects me. What happens is all you're doing is they learn to perform in your presence, and then they call your bluff. So if you've made a decision to leave, don't announce it. Start getting in a place of getting support around you, because what happens when people are in toxic relationships, it's come here, go away, back and forth. And the people around them that can clearly see that they need to split up get a certain fatigue about it. So they stop sharing what happens. So they have to get a support system around them that can help them be objective and to create a strategic plan, especially if there are kids involved. It's not as easy as just walking out the door. So you have to get a plan, and then you have to do things from a logical, well thought out plan versus I've had enough and I'm angry. That can give you enough energy to get out the door. But if you're leaving out the door from an angry place, once you settle, you're going to rethink your decision. Well, maybe I shouldn't have left. Maybe he's going to change. And that's where the person kind of goes back and forth, because they're making decisions from a place of emotion and not from a place of logic and support. And they need support mostly because they're not able to do it on they're alone, because most of the time, and I'm making a very general statement, the person that keeps kind of going back, there's a term that we use, that the dog always returns to his vomit, right? Because what happens is you don't realize once you kind of leave that really is vomit, and you really think it's a gourmet meal, so to speak. Well, only if he changes, because it goes back to self-worth. And unfortunately, for many women in particular, it's what works both ways, but I work with a lot of women, don't understand they have self-worth issues. So we can tell that there's self-worth issues when we look at your decisions and when we look at how much you take in an abusive relationship. And this is what we'll hear all the time. Well, I just love him, Dr. Janie. I just love him. Right. And when that happens and people hold on to a fantasy that as long as I love this person enough and I tolerate it, this is literally what a lot of people think. I could probably even look at my younger self thinking this, that somehow, that they're going to just wake up and realize, and they're going to value me and they're going to appreciate me. It doesn't work that way, right? Because we're outsourcing our self-esteem. And only if this person changes, then I'll feel loved, then I'll feel seen, then I'll feel heard. We have to feel loved and seen. And to a certain degree, I don't believe that you just go in a corner and you just learn to love yourself. You do have to learn to love yourself in a relationship. But if you have self-worth, then you birth self-esteem, and self-esteem has a boundary that says that that's not going to work for me. And you can leave without having to have the dramatic effect. Usually we have the dramatic effect because we're trying to be manipulative to change the other person.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's great advice. Great advice. Because we don't think about that and going back to it. And then, the mindset, like the thoughts you're saying, well, he loved this about me. He loved that about me. He loved, and we start thinking about these things, right? And not thinking about the things. And I'm always a positive thinker, not thinking about the negative things that you are actually putting up with in the relationship, if that makes sense. Going back to and like you said, he could change. Yeah. Having that thought that, and the dreaming that, we can change.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or even look at some of the women in my own family, is there was not only from a cultural standpoint, but from a Christian value standpoint, just coming from a Christian background, is that the more you tolerated, then the more you are a martyr as a woman. And I remember the one day, I didn't know what it meant at that time, Pamela, but as a young girl, I remember this aha moment. I could clearly know what it is now, but at the moment, I remember my mom fixing all of our food, and we're at the dinner table and we're eating. She fixed my dad's plate, he's eating, and then I look over at my mom and she's eating at the sink. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, you fix the food, and you lay the plate for us, and you eat at the sink, you eat last. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want that for myself. But at the time I didn't realize that, but because this long suffering, we would take these scriptures from the Bible as women and not necessarily put it in its context. And you realize the more you suffer as a woman, then the more you get lifted up. And it actually doesn't work that way, right? You cannot necessarily breathe life into other people, especially your own children, if you are yourself empty. What you teach them is to be empty. And then you learn to perform and outsource your self-esteem, which is a huge reason why a lot of women will feel like they can perform. You can't you can't sex somebody into healing. You can't cook them into healing. All of those things, the way to get to a man's heart is through his stomach, all of those things, people hold on to those things and it keeps them in dysfunction versus I deserve to be loved, I deserve to be seen, and I deserve to be respected, and as well as my partner, right? So it's a mutual thing. But if that doesn't occur, then women will tend to suffer. And then sometimes, especially when there's children involved, it becomes hard.
Yeah, they do actually stay in relationships because of the kids. Yeah, I've got quite a few friends that's like that right now. And so, and I myself was like that. I waited until my last graduated from college, and I was like, he graduated from college and I'm out of here. And that's exactly what I did. Boom, gone. Yeah. Yeah. So I am so appreciative of everything that you've shared with us. And I was actually looking at your organizational memberships. My goodness. So you're a member of the American Counseling Association, the American Association of Christian Counselors, Mental Health Counselors of Central Florida, and you're in West Palm Beach, which is a great area. I love West Palm Beach. Yeah.
I graduated from Palm Beach Atlantic. That's my master's, but my practice is in the Orlando area, so near Disney World.
Oh, okay. My daughter was going to go to Palm Beach Atlantic and ended up in Hillsdale.
Okay.
Yeah. International Institute for Trauma and Addiction Professionals, International Association of Certified Sexual Addiction Specialist. I can talk. And then EMDR, International Association. You're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. And I greatly appreciate the time you've spent with us today. Any other tips or things that you can share with us before we let you go?
Yeah, absolutely. If someone even resonates or even thinks they're in a toxic, dysfunctional relationship, for them to realize that they're not alone. A lot of times the person who's thinking about even leaving has a lot of shame. So when you have a lot of shame, then you learn to hide from the outside world and you suffer in silence. And women have a higher rates of depression, have a higher rates of stress, have a higher rates of their own addictions, right? So to realize that, especially if you're a woman and you're in a toxic relationship, to realize you're not alone. You're not alone. And you can't cause someone, you can't cure them, and you can't change them, but really looking and reaching out for support.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Just reach out and share with us your website and your personal information, please.
Yep, absolutely. So there's two main websites, www.lifecounseling.com and then janielacy.com, JANIELACY.com.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Everyone, reach out to Dr. Janie Lacy. As you can see, she's absolutely awesome, and we're so grateful for her time. Everyone, you guys stay safe, be blessed, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.